Gold laners have to do two things to outfarm their opponent: farm and survive. Everyone can do those two things, but not well enough to farm thousands of gold more than the enemy. So that's why I've put together 4 steps that will teach you the secrets to farming and surviving. Step 1. Laning phase. The laning phase is where a lot of players fail. They would either make a mistake and lose, or they never know how to properly use their advantages to win their lane. Avoiding both scenarios is essential to outfarming your opponent. So how do you avoid them? First, decide your playstyle. This is so you don't end up feeding the enemy, but it can be important too if you want to reduce their farm. Whether your starting playstyle should be aggressive or passive is decided by your hero and enemy. So during the draft, try to wait until the enemy gold laner has chosen their hero so you can choose a hero you believe is good against theirs. If not, then you can decide your playstyle with this list, which shows the different types of gold laners: strong early game and weak early game. Gold laners with a strong early game tend to be able to play aggressive, while gold laners with a weak early game should play passive/safe. But figuring out who's stronger between 2 strong early game gold laners requires knowledge and experience. So I would suggest playing safe if you don't know. But if you can't counterpick the enemy, you can choose a gold laner who's harder to gank, such as Beatrix, Lunox, or Naten with their ultimates. But if you want to play other marksmen, then go for it. If you know you're the stronger gold laner, play aggressive and freeze their lane, using these 2 methods. The first method forces the enemy gold laner to either approach closer and get damaged by you, or stay back, where they lose their farm. If the enemy rushes to clear their wave, you can clear all the minions except for the last minion, which you pull closer to your side until the next minion wave arrives. This delays the flow and positions the minions closer to you. This method of freezing also works for the passive playstyle, where you freeze to play safer and make the enemy more vulnerable to ganks. However, be careful freezing the first wave that spawns, because you won't have level 2, while the enemy can attack you with their level 2 advantage. The second method is where you're the stronger gold laner, and you zone them whenever they try to approach closer to the minion waves in the middle of the lane. Unlike the first method, the second method keeps the enemy under their turret, which prevents the enemy gold from farming the crab. But keep in mind that other enemies might gank you, as you're very vulnerable. Now, speaking of farming the crab, here's an important tip that will make you farm way faster. Ask yourself this: how many times do you take the crab per game? The gold crab spawns at 42 seconds into the game and respawns 1 minute after being taken. Killing it grants around 100 to 300 gold, but it will stop spawning after being taken 7 times. You should prioritize it as a small objective by arriving there before it spawns and using the game timer. When it is taken, add 1 minute to the game timer and try to arrive early to secure it before the enemy gold laner or jungler does. But remember to watch out for ganks, and don't die for it. You can usually farm the gold crab if you are better at last hitting than the enemy. For example, in this clip I play Harith and have a better last hit than Carry, and because of that I was able to get 4 gold crabs. The 4 gold crabs equaled 547 gold. Step 2. Map awareness. The other important part of the laning phase is map awareness. For example, your playstyle can change depending on nearby enemies or allies, and you would know whether to farm the gold crab or not. So, let's start with how to act according to each enemy. If the enemy jungler is missing, you can literally predict their gank path by using the scoreboard trick, which allows you to know the buff they start at level 1. If they gain 20 gold and then 100 gold, it means they're taking the purple buff and are usually rotating to the top lane. If they instantly gain 120 gold, it means they're taking the orange buff and are usually rotating to the bottom lane. So, if the enemy jungler is rotating to your lane, play safe. But if not, you still need to consider the enemy mid laner and roamer. Pay attention to which lane they're rotating to while you have vision on them on mid lane. When they're missing, you can often figure out their position on the map by looking at their direction right before you lose vision of them. But remember that they can still change their direction after you lose vision on them. Play safe until they've been spotted somewhere else and do not take any risks. The enemy mid laner might also be on mid lane, while the enemy roamer is camping in nearby bushes. Watch out for the enemy roamer if he uses Flicker as battle spell, or if he's Kufra or Franco, who can ambush you from far away. Next up is how to act according to your allies. Just like the enemy roamer, jungler, and mid laner, your allies can gank your lane too. If you notice on the map that your allies are rotating to gank you, you should try to bait the enemy gold laner out. But keep in mind that you should only try to bait and approach the enemy gold when you're sure of where the other enemies are. Don't blindly follow up on your ally. Use the first method of freezing to make the enemy easier to gank. Also, if the ally jungler is farming towards your path, don't take the common jungle, as it is required for him to reach level 4 to gank. Step 3. Avoiding early game deaths. Now that you can figure out when you're getting ganked by using your map awareness, you need to know what to actually do in those situations to avoid early game deaths. So here are 4 important tips. The first tip is about surviving ganks from multiple enemies. A lot of players believe that it's impossible to survive from 3 to 4 enemies and blame their teammates for not helping. But sometimes it's actually possible, if you know what to do. This is up to your map awareness and vision from your team, but if you notice enemies are missing, abandon your turret rather than die defending it, where you hide and position yourself in this bush. This prevents you from getting trapped under the turret for when they come. But what should you do if it's too late and you're trapped under the turret where the enemies surround you? Well, the second tip is to position yourself where you block the minion wave before they enter the turret range, which will make it harder for them to dive under your turret, because you'll only have to defend one side instead of 2 sides. Your main goal here is to waste their time as much as possible and clear the wave to prevent the turret from getting pushed. The third tip is to be careful of these bushes when walking back to your lane if enemies are missing. This is especially important if you recalled or died while there's still time before the first turtle spawns. During this time, the enemy jungler might be farming near your lane, such as at the fire beetle or horned lizard, if your own jungler isn't, because that's the normal farming route when rotating to gold lane. If they notice you're missing from your lane, they might camp to ambush you before rotating to the turtle. In this situation, your best option is to avoid your lane until the turtle spawns so the enemy jungler leaves your lane. The fourth and last tip is getting tier 1 items. These items can save you from getting killed by the enemy jungler in the early game. You can opt for Dreadnought armor when the enemy jungler is physical damage, such as Fanny, Hayabusa, or Ling. Or opt for Magic Blade if it's Julian or a mage that's constantly ganking you. But keep in mind that the items don't suit all types of gold laners, such as Harith or Lunox. Step 4. Mid-game rotation. The laning phase isn't the only time where you can outfarm your opponent. There's the mid-game too. If you already have a lead, you can farm even more, but if you're behind in gold, there's still a chance to come back. So, after the laning phase is over, you'll usually face one of these 2 scenarios. 1. You lost your first turret. 2. You pushed the enemy's first turret. In the first scenario, remain safe under the second turret unless your lane is frozen by the enemy, and don't go too far out if enemies are missing. Since the minion waves take longer to arrive at your second turret, you can rotate back and forth between your lane and the mid lane to clear both minion waves while your mage is busy with ganking EXP lane. This is what I call double laning, which will help you catch up to the enemy team's gold. However, when you travel between the lanes, use safe paths as enemies now have more map control and can camp you. In the second scenario, you should either stay on your lane and farm gold crabs, or swap lanes with your EXP laner to continue pushing turrets. In solo queue, I would suggest staying on your own lane rather than swapping if your EXP laner is unreliable, as it requires timing. You also shouldn't swap lanes before 5-10 because the first 10 waves on gold lane grants you 45% extra gold. Now, when it comes to the turtle, you should rotate if your team contests it. But don't go there first, and instead wait for your team or roamer to go who can provide vision for you, as other enemies could be camping in nearby bushes. This applies to all types of teamfights. Never go near bushes first if it's dangerous. But even so, you still want to keep a long distance since enemies can attack you either way, if they ignore your roamer. If your team doesn't contest the turtle, then continue farming and try to split push if you can. If you're winning your lane, continue to prioritize farming the gold crab. And that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching.